Afternoon, and wherever you are in this wide, wonderful world that we live in, you are very welcome to the Soft and System Size to Sales. And in this series that we've been speaking to the last 3, 4 weeks is developing sales leaders for the future and employing effective strategies. So it's all about leadership within the sales field. And we're going to be talking in big depth today about this. So, welcome back. And my good friend Shay Lynch on my left, which is correct, and I've got that correct today. And we're lucky enough we have no technology issues today,
Yes.
which is awesome. So, thanks, Shay. Every week we speak about a different subject. And again, this week we are developing sales leaders, but we're talking about negotiation. And I think the best place to start is in our lives. We do this all the time. We negotiate everything that we do. Like I had to negotiate with my kids this morning because we had a big downpour in Ireland, and it's about getting the kids out of the door when they're playing snowball fights and getting them into school on time and the school being open. And I had to negotiate with traffic. I had to negotiate with snow, but also I had to negotiate with my daughter who also wanted to be dropped off as well, and she didn't want to do that, and I didn't want to drop her off, so we had to negotiate and we had to mediate to find a win-win solution for us all. But every other area of our lives we have to negotiate. Let's start off to the point here, and then let's get into the bigger picture. Shay, what about yourself? How do you see negotiation?
Well, you know what? It's a really good way to open the conversation, Jason, because as you said, everything is negotiation. And what I like to say is we need to understand the distinction between negotiate, manipulate, right? And compromise, right? There's subtle differences between them because when you manipulate, Jason, like you could easily, your example of the kids, you could say, look, I'll give you sweets later if you get in that's a sort of manipulation, right?
Yeah.
But then there's a compromise, Jason. Compromise is never good. Sometimes compromises are good, but when it comes to negotiation, it's not always good because it can weaken your stance, weaken your proposition, weaken your value in the eyes of your potential client. So it's really important to understand the word negotiate. Negotiate your value and service in return for what they will receive from you to get that balance correct. And even if we stick with the sales leader for the moment, like they have multiple levels to negotiate on, even inside their business, never mind going outside to their potential customers, right? They have to negotiate with their fellow directors at their level, maybe the CEO, because Jason, one of the biggest things that happens every year, and when strategies are done for the upcoming year, sales are always told, yeah, you need to up your sales by 20%, right?
Yeah.
That's just sales. Everybody puts pressure on sales to get that extra 20%. So it's really important for a leader to negotiate, to understand why do you need 20%? What do the sales team have to do? Why are other areas of the business not doing stuff? Because 20% profits, Jason, if you're talking about 20% profits, what does that actually mean? That could also mean 20% reduction in cost, not just 20% extra sales or 20% extra customers. So again, it's really important to start with the internal view for the leaders to say, well, what does that mean for a leader?
Yeah. And it is, I think you need a high degree of an emotional intelligence to really understand, number one, yourself and looking at what that 20% might look and feel like to yourself, to your team, but really understanding the values behind that. And I think as a leader, and especially as an inspiring leader, you had to really understand everything about it. And I think emotional intelligence, I know we discussed this on different podcasts, just particularly on emotional intelligence, but I think it plays a massive part, because the more you can understand yourself, the better that you can negotiate with other people. And especially in the areas of conflict, and especially when you're discussing these areas of increase in sales targets and margins and all that, but you have to have that conversation with the CEO, but then with the other leadership teams as well, whoever else that might be. The marketing, do they necessarily need to increase their productivity and their collaboration so it can be a win-win? So you have to negotiate that so everyone wins in this process, because what actually might happen at the end result, if we do win, then the company wins as well. So there's a strategy and implication with the whole of the business there. But again, emotional intelligence and how we communicate these messages outwards. And I think that's part and parcel of that negotiation process.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, Jason. You need, because that whole emotional intelligence and awareness and understanding from the other person's perspective is super important. So then you can then build your service or your sort of stance so they understand it correctly. And again, we can divide that to internally and externally, Jason. Like if you're sticking internally, you need to know what your limits are from yourself, but also your team, what they can actually deliver. And then to truly understand why the directors are coming to you and saying, we need 20% extra sales. It's about building that. Well, why do you need 20% extra sales? Building that, getting that view. So eventually you get into a situation where you can come to an agreement, because then you fully understand. But again, Jason, negotiation is not about just accepting what you're told. You need to have like your baseline where you're not going to negotiate anymore. You need to have those bottom lines that you can tolerate, because at the end of the day, like you're going to put extra stress on your teams. They're going to have to work a lot harder, knocking more doors or whatever it takes to get those sales. That's not always feasible, and it's not always fair. And then you can have counterproductive results and consequences because you're pushing them too hard. And two things will happen, Jason. They'll either cut back in contribution or they leave. And it's actually worse if they cut back in contribution and stay, because they're doing less. And you have to keep people motivated. So that's why, even just on an internal level, from a sales leader's perspective, they need to be strong negotiators with their leader, with their peers, and then with their teams as well. So everything is aligned, complementing each other and not contradicting.
What I was thinking of while you were speaking is, I think it's in certain times it's good to map this stuff out for yourself, not for anyone else, but really is to map out what would happen in these different scenarios if they're presenting to you. So it's preparation and planning for all of the areas, and maybe all of the conversations and the objections that you might get, and the questions that you might need to ask yourself first, but then preparation and the questions that you would need to communicate effectively to other key stakeholders within the organization. So if you mind mapping is a really good visual tool for us. Do it on your whiteboard. I know yours is over there somewhere. Map it out, or just get post-it notes and just get a visual 360 view of where it could possibly go. So you're completely prepared for every situation, every scenario, in every part of the department with your other key stakeholders in the organizations. What conversation would you have with them? Then with your team, your sales team, how would that look and feel like? But again, I think you even need to be putting, if you're putting extra stress and pressure on your team, have a look at their wellness. Have a look at their mental stability. Have a look at how they will take it in, how well you can effectively motivate them with giving them better rewards or whatever it might be. There's other areas that we need to consider and understand, but also you have to negotiate to make sure that you're giving them value. Maybe you need to help them with supporting L&D training and other areas, so they can up their level and up their skills. There's lots of things that you need to consider in making sure that the Stephen Covey win-win scenario, And
Mm.
hopefully it's not a win-lose or lose-lose, but we all need to see it from the same picture.
Yeah, and I totally agree, Jason. And what you said to me, or just there for me, is really important about like you map it out with the teams, with all your counterparts and the different directors and the different departments. Because I always say it's better together, work together to make it better. If I have to get 20% more sales, right? Say that's the commitment, right? That doesn't just mean my team has to do 20% more. The marketing team may have to contribute in terms of generating more leads, for example. Then the delivery team may have to work on being able to up their capacity to take on an extra 20% more business, right? And then the backups team, the cost of doing business, the cost of delivery, they may have to work better and say, well, if we have to reduce our cost by 20%. So it should be a unified approach, holistic approach, not just one team being pulled on its own. And that to me, where the really valuable element of negotiation internally is crucial, Jason, for the success of any business. Because it can't be, and I always say this, it's easy for teams to be functionally excellent, really good doing their own job, right? But what about cross functionality? What about the inter team dependencies? And I always talk about it, systems thinking. How are you all aligned working together?
Mm.
How are you all doing it together? As opposed to me doing one thing in one department, you doing a different thing. And then all of a sudden, when we come together, we realize it's not right. And then we have to rework it, because that happens a lot. And it
Yeah.
happens a lot between marketing and sales, never mind any other teams. So it's important to make sure you've got that effectiveness working between each team.
I think the word that you're looking for there is collaboration and
Collaboration,
key
cross-functional
collaboration.
collaboration.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it is just to make sure everyone's aligned, but also congruent. Congruence
Mm.
is such a wonderful, my favorite word, but it is alignment in everyone sees the same vision, the same purpose, the same values, but everyone working together towards that same
Mm.
cohesive goal, that we know what we're doing. And again, but that does come out with that negotiation part of mapping things out. But I always like to use that big T, which is trust. Trusting that everyone sees it and feels it and does it. And especially if it's 10%, 20%, I think 20% is pretty impressive. I think that would scare me, but I think that would scare most organizations. But it does happen. And I've seen it in organizations where they go,
Jason, it's funny you say that. It does scare. And one of the things that I worked very hard on a number of years ago, I actually worked with a sales team. And like, I'm not going to mention any companies, but it was a great learning experience for me, because the sales leader came in and didn't take any accountability. He was going to look at the director, say that we have to get 20% more sales. I've tried to argue. That weakened his position. He didn't say, look, we're going to have to get 20% more, but I'm going to work in with you. I'm going to help you deliver this. We're going to build this together as a team. We're going to come up with all these innovative ideas. And guess what, Jason? We actually did in the end. And we came up with some fantastic mechanisms, which now I use to help other clients, right? But the point to tell you that story is, it's very important that you take ownership for everything. You only accept what is fair, right? And you create that agreement and you lock it in, so there's no deviation from the plan unless it's in agreement with all. So once you lock in that relationship, make commitments. And there's Jason, as I said, the sales team will have commitments, marketing team will have commitments, all the other teams. The only way it'll succeed if they all do it together.
yeah, I think it's buy-in is the
Oh yeah,
word that
yeah.
we all have to get the buy-in in all agreement that this is the right way to do it. And I think it is that, again, it's probably going back to the lean process where you get everyone involved and making sure that everyone understands that this is the right direction for us. But we know that we're going to do that if it is the 20%. But it's also the change that people have to embed it into their brains. And it is, again, it's I'm using all these fancy words, but it's change management as well. It's another direction for the organization. If it is, maybe they've got new products, new services that they're going to go, well, because we got all of this, we have to make sure that they work. We have to make sure that the company is aligned and motivated to do that. But in order for us to do that, we have to increase the sales. But in order for us to increase the sales, you're going to get extra remuneration from selling X and Y products together so they're congruent and in line where they need to go. But the guys need to be motivated to do that. And then the marketing team need to be structured in place and plonked into place that it is in a self-alignment. And I know we've spoken lots about this before, but the negotiation is absolutely critical in this part.
No, it is, Jason. And I know we're already up in 15 minutes. We've only talked about negotiations internal to and I hate saying the word battles because there's always battles between senior management and leaders, right? So it's truly important to master these skills just so you can communicate effectively and create, as you said, that cross collaboration and win-wins together. And I do believe, again, as I always say, it's easy to point fingers at sales teams all the time. They're the lifeblood of a company, and absolutely they are. But they're only as good as their weakest link, and that's every other part of their business too. So it's all about that synergistic approach to business performance, right? But then, even if you talk about where does negotiation skills come from a leader perspective outward to the business, and I believe it's two levels, right? One is when that leader is getting involved in some of those high value contracts or big businesses, the really one-offs, that one contract you want. And then also, so supporting your sales team on that, but also then supporting your sales team and teaching the art of strong negotiation skills, because it's really important, Jason, because you know as well as I know, I mentioned the word earlier on, you can either manipulate or influence, and negotiation should be along the lines of influence as opposed to manipulate, because manipulate, you get one sale quickly, you won't get repeat, you won't build that relationships. And that's why I really truly believe the negotiation is paramount in the sales cycle, because you don't want to go into a relationship, then you start to feel bad or bitter feeling towards it because you feel you've got hard done by, which can happen, Jason. Then you have to learn, you have to create a strategy to exit that work with that client. You don't want to go there, and you don't want to cut yourself short. And then if people are trying to manipulate you, Jason, and cut you down on price, maybe it's a case of, well, should I be working with these? So it's really important to learn the value and how you can, as you said earlier, create that win-win all the way through. Before I ever do anything, Jason, and again, I've learned the hard way, is what is the win-win? What do I believe the win-win is? And then I talk with my potential customers what they believe the win-win is. And then we see, are they aligned? And there's certain things you can negotiate, Jason, absolutely. But it's always the win-win. I've seen fantastic people do negotiation skills, and it's different if you're trying to buy something of a car dealer and you want to get the bottom price, right? There's many negotiation tactics. That's different. But if you're talking business to business, it's important for the win-win.
The way of the world now, it's all very complex. So lots of different, if you're working with a company, there could be multiple stakeholders that you have to deal with. So within your company, there should be 2 people that are on the same account, or maybe 3 people that are working towards the same agreement, alignment with the other company. And preparation is absolutely key. So this is where the sales leaders should come in and check the decks, that the decks are absolutely perfect, but also to make sure that you're negotiating in advance, that you practice all the negotiation skills. What I found is there's not enough practice in any organization. They don't practice before they pitch to any client. So you need to go out there, and these are negotiation things that you might not have thought about. These are the obstacles and objections and things that you might not have thought about within the conversation. So have a look at all of that. Practice it before you get there. Have a look at areas that you can just go, no, we're not going to move any more forward. And I think it makes a proud person to pull away from a deal and say no in negotiations if they're not seeing the value and the person's just trying to knock you down for the sake of it. You have to stand your point and go, well, that is the flaw, I'm afraid. Thank you so much. Let's stay in contact. And that's a negotiation in itself. And it's a real hard thing for you to do as any professional, is to pull away from a deal. And it is lose-lose for both people, because the client's not getting what they want and we can't do what the client is asking us to do. So that's a negotiation within itself. So that's almost conflict resolution as well.
Well,
Seeing things
you're
from
right.
different
There's
points
so
of view.
many skills interlinked with negotiation. As I said, persuasion, as you said, collaboration, conflict resolution. I think negotiation supersedes all of these, Jason, because they're all impacted by it. And you're right, Jason, you have to be prepared to walk away, because you have to know your value, your business values, your ethics, your morals, and everything. You need to
And your
know.
personal values as
Exactly.
well, and that gut feel that you get from something that's not quite right.
Yeah, and that's it, Jason. And these are the things you have to, like, negotiation is really good, but you have to have your non-negotiables too, right? You have to have, and as I said, don't compromise quality, value, ethics, morals, time, price points. I don't negotiate price, Jason. I negotiate value. And if people start talking to me price straight away, I just say, look, if you're interested in the price, I'm not interested. So if you want to stop the conversation, let's stop it. But if you want to talk about value, once I understand your needs, then I can come back with some price. It's up to you.
This is something, a wise word that my mentor from the US said: I don't have a rate card, but I have an impact card.
Oh, lovely.
Which is slightly different. We've actually reached our witching hour again. And what one thing can you take away from this conversation, Shay, that will highlight everything that we've said?
Yeah, well, I think, I'm going to say two things, Jason. There are three words: collaboration, win-win. They're the things that I want to say. Always view the win-win, because if it's a win-win at the start, it leads to more good business and relationships further down the road.
I would say ethical consideration in negotiation. That means a lot of things. And I think we covered a lot of that. So I'm just going to leave it at that point.
Yeah. Brilliant.
So thanks once again. You've listened to the soft and system sides to sales. We generally do it on either Thursday or sometimes a Friday, but we do this every week. And we want to make sure that we give value forward and give lots of golden nuggets of knowledge, inspiration, advice, so you can actually go back to your organization. Maybe you've learned something, or you can start to question something as well. So thanks again with my good friend Shay.
Thanks a lot, Jason. Thanks, everyone.